the whole school itself is kind of like a cedar lodge for knowledge. It doesn't necessarily translate it that way, but that's kind of like the how it's considered when we say that. For years, the elders have kind of said like we need a school like that teaches the language and the culture, and whether they become elders or leaders or chiefs, administrators, they there's something that they needed, like something or wanted something like this in Kenora, like to offer language. We have like so many schools within Kenora, and this was something that they wanted to move towards. So when I got hired on, like we kind of took a step back and kind of like, what are we gonna, what's the school gonna be, or what's it? And like I was mentioning before, like we talked about the immersion programming, and then we kind of asked, like, well, what is immersion? And even how do you even how do you even like how would you assess an immersion school? How do you what is an immersion school? I mean, so we had those kind of discussions. I've talked to several other principals and even a superintendent in Minnesota, and I asked, like, how do you determine what an immersion school is? And people even said a percentage, like half immersion, quarter of immersion. So when you walk into a classroom, is it what's on the walls, what's being taught, how often you hear the language? Is there so I wouldn't the school itself is not full immersion, and that's why we kind of got away from immersion, because one day we'd like to get there and then use the language to actually academically teach. But so we said, well, it will be an immersion Anishinaabe school where they'll hear the language, read the language, and do everything that's part of it, being an Anishinaabe person. So every day we smudge. The students do it now. They're not afraid of anything when it comes to like smudging. We do the morning prayer, which all the kids have learned, and we also do the flag song every morning. So the kids, and it's almost like if you're gonna run, or if you're gonna teach, or do a school like this, you kind of have to walk the walk and not just talk the talk. So we did away with 45-minute language classes. It's just basically you use the language when you can, whenever you can possibly use it, use the language. And the kids come in, they don't have the language, so they learn as they go throughout the day. And they're like the kids are like sponges; they're learning so quick. So so we kind of got away from like the language will be there, but then there also has to be like I mentioned, the smudging, even the elders, and we try to make it really meaningful. Like even something as simple as sitting down at lunchtime with all the students. Like some programs, you'll have people go out and fish. We're going to teach the kids how to fish, which is good. Like I mean, that's part of it, but that's almost like just the surface, because going fishing is like going out with family, talking, communicating. Once you catch the fish, you sit down at dinner table. So there's always that constant communication with families and developing those family values. Or whether it be like, don't do this or don't do that, don't waste food. That all becomes part of what we try to do here at Kiizhik. So just sitting down with the kids and having lunch. That's part of our programming here, and that's what I mean by walking the walk. And like, it's okay to dress with a ribbon shirt. It's okay to have your hair braided. So that's kind of basically how we've been functioning at as a school, and its programming. In terms of the aim, like there's different levels, like and there's so many different things that come out of it. But ultimately, for me, as the principal, the vision of the whole school is to basically like maintain the language, like keep it alive. And that's something I share with some of the students, because I used to teach grade 8, and one of the students asked me, how can we have to learn Anishinaabe language? And I said, well, it has to be held on somehow, because somebody that's has a French background, origin of French, or even that's Italian, they're always going to have some place to go to, like go back to Italy to relearn the language. Us, this is it. We don't have nowhere to go to. This is our home. So obviously to learn the language, but also maintain that spiritual connection to the land, your family, the animals, trees, and to understand that, understand how to pray, why you pray, why the use of tobacco, so all those different things. So in the end, we've taught them the basic values of being a Anishinaabe. That's would be the goal of it all. I know we talk about language, but that's all encompasses in it. And every morning we talk about the 7 teachings, but with Kiizhik, we do talk about an 8th, which is forgiveness. That's something that we've learned, we've heard the elders talk about. As important as 7 teachings are, we always include forgiveness within the 7 teachings. So I guess ultimately the goal is to teach them the Anishinaabe way, and it's difficult to say like you learn in the classroom. It's just how we all conduct ourselves as educators, and that's something that we talk about even in our staff meetings. What we're doing in a class and what have we done to contribute to that vision of having or becoming Anishinaabe, or for the kids to understand like it's just being Anishinaabe is not something on the wall. The 7 teachings is not just posters, it's actually living it and walking that walk. That's why I kind of say that you have to walk the walk to actually get through and understand what being Anishinaabe is. For the Ontario curriculum, there's all kinds of assessments, right? Whether it be benchmarking, testing, report cards, like there's a lot of resources for that. All our teachers are OCP or qualified, and they all know the language. So I guess with the school, that's the kind of thing that we look for is the gifts that they have. So if you have a teacher, like we met our grade 3, 4, 5 teacher, she's really strong with the language and culture, so she'll teach a math lesson, but she'll just how they, like say for example jump math, she'll say what jump math, the lesson they're working on, but she'll throw in as much language as she can. So, and that's what I mean, like eventually academically we'd like the books to be done in Anishinaabe and then everybody teaching in Anishinaabe, but in terms of balance, sometimes we do have to, or I have to take a step back and see like it's, okay, we're doing a lot of Anishinaabe language and culture teachings, and you said, where are we at with the curriculum? How's everybody doing? So I'm always kind of talking with the teachers and making sure, like we have EQEOs coming up soon. So it's kind of like, okay, here where we at with it, and remind the teachers. So, and we have a lot of strong support from the parents. So they'll even come to us. We have a parent council where they'll share that this is where my student or my child is at in terms of the reading, writing. Can we get more? So we're always reminded in terms of the curriculum or even the language, and so we try to maintain that healthy balance. But there are times you can almost sense one thing is being, and it's kind of really hard to explain in terms of you almost have to be here every day to notice. Oh, it just seems like we're leaning towards, let's let's try to, whether it be a powwow because we have monthly powwows, we have feasts, and just the little things that we do. Like one of the teachings is when you have blessed food, you don't just throw it in the garbage. You put it away. You put it in the bush. So that's something that we taught our students, and it was kind of funny. And I share this story because it's how much the kids are learning. We had the little grade 2s, because we usually have a box set aside, we kind of call it a spirit box. And the students will put their food in there, so later on the day, like when school's all done, they'll take that food and we'll put it in the bush with a little bit of tobacco. But then there was adults there, so with that spirit box, you don't mix with the plates and forks. You don't mix with it. You put that in the garbage. But a lot of the adults were just throwing their plates in. So I had 2 grade 2 students, scraping off their plate into the spirit box, and then there's a couple of adults that came by and threw their plate and everything. And so the students were just like, they kind of took a step back and they looked up at the adults, and they looked back and then they kind of looked at me. So they knew that's not what we were supposed to do. So when I seen them look at me as I got up and I just kind of cleaned out that box, and I kind of reminded the group that this is what it's for, and not like we're all different in terms of the community. Some don't do that, or they don't have this, don't have the same types of teachings, but but it does create discussion at home. So sometimes I'll have to put myself out there. So it's sort of call me and say, "Well, we don't do that," but at least it's creating discussion or even awareness. There's no blueprint, and that's something that I'm consistently asked, like what are your successes and why is the school succeeding? I think I wish there was a blueprint, but then that takes away some of that the spirituality and that human side, or to making the Anishinaabe when it comes, like I said, like with the curriculum and what they're learning when it comes to literacy, numeracy, or social studies, there's all kinds of resources for that. But when it comes to being Anishinaabe, like it's that's the human side to it, and the teacher will know that, and like where they're at with it. The EAs will know, like I'll know it, like it's all part of it. Even us coming together, just talking about a student, like who would be good this morning if we're asked by maybe an organization, can you come here, ask them over and do morning prayer. The teacher would be the one. These are the ones, and it's. We try to be really careful when it comes to assessing the language and like the Anishinaabe side, because that's what I mean. Like it takes on. That's the human part. That's that interaction. Numeracy, literacy. It's in a book, black and white, but you don't want to say you get a D on being an Anishinaabe, right? So it's really sharing. Like say for example, we have the 7 grandfather teaching awards, and they get little prizes, and but then we announce and we try to celebrate those little things. And every day it's like when they go around to smudge the school and the other students, we celebrate those things, and that's kind of how it's measured. But in terms of black and white, we could put a report together and how well we're doing. But in terms of as it's more progress as opposed to results, as the report cards are more results oriented, because you get a final mark. That's where we're at. But with the language and culture, it's more progression. So when they're done here, they'll have some kind of knowledge in terms of language and culture, and hopefully they understand what the school was trying to do. It wasn't necessarily language and culture, it was actually the whole encompassed as an Anishinaabe person.
And then, do you notice attendance? What's attendance like?
Well, it depends, right? I mean, like with any other school, you'll have some students that don't attend as much as we'd like them to, but in terms of, like I mentioned before, like we started off with 12 students, we jumped to 40, now we're over 50. So we don't close our doors to anybody, like whether they're First Nations or not. Our school we try to look at our school no different than Roman Catholic School Board or public school board, but it's just our foundation is language and culture. I guess with any other school, like attendance, we have our attendance issues and call home and are they coming today? But in terms of overall, the parents are really supportive. Parent council, like our elders, our chiefs, and same with our board members for the side, like they're really supportive of the school. And it's as long as everybody's paddling in the same direction, we're always going to be moving forward. So it's the word seems to spread fairly quick in terms of our school, and it's not really something we asked for. It's just something that just happened, and I think because of the vision of the school and what we're trying to do, we have people can come look at your school and can see what you guys are doing here, and really ultimately we try to become one big family. So if somebody and then the school might not be for everybody, right? Like parents may want their school for other things and move them from other school. We're always very supportive of that. But like I said, but once they become part of Kiizhik, they're always going to be part of our family. we try to create a really family atmosphere. I think, again, like when I mentioned like that human side of it, like it's that, and it's um, learning to be Anishinaabe. Like when we talk about culture, we talk about language, we talk about so many of the resources, what's important, what should they learn, what shouldn't they learn. Just last week we talked about why we're not supposed to whistle at night. Some of the kids knew, like, you're not supposed to whistle at night, but then um, so we go in there, share our own experiences. Like I shared with the students um, a story that happened to me where I was whistling and my dog basically flipped out, and I wasn't sure why. It was at night, and then as I was walking, it felt like there was an owl whistling in my ear, like how an owl would sound. And I took off running until I got to the light of a street light. And I stopped and looked around and I couldn't explain it. And I told an elder, and that's when I was older. Like I wasn't sort of a young boy anymore. And he told me that that's how the spirits talk. That's how they communicate. That's why you hear the whistling in the trees. It's the spirits communicating. Um, so while I was whistling at night, I didn't realize I was communicating. So they communicated back and scared me. So, and that's a story I shared with the kids in there, and that's something that we promote our own experiences. We respect our elders, to the utmost, but each and every person has something to offer, whether it be life experiences or education, and it's being open to those types of teachings, and it's open, like whether they even be different religions, whether it be First Nations, non-native Caucasian, like I think being open to all that, I think that's what I think Anishinaabe education is. And it's all the little things, living that life. Like when I said about like sitting around a table and eating with, like that's building family values. It's not just it's not just in the book. It's almost everything that we do, how we treat other people. For me, that's you might say Anishinaabe education, but it's also Anishinaabe democracy, like how Anishinaabe life. Like that, yeah, living the good life.
It's just life.
And we're going to run into hardships, but then the more we talk, even we learn coping skills, right? And that's one of the issues, especially with social media nowadays. The young kids are learning things that I didn't learn until I was like 16, 17, 18. So that's been trying to keep up with that, and whether like for example, self-harm. It's just everywhere. It's on social media. It's on music videos. It's on newspapers. It's on YouTube. It's basically trying to keep up with that, and our teachers giving them those skills and abilities to cope with the students. So it's a really broad question, but like I said, in the end, it's the little things that kind of put them together to make it work in terms of Anishinaabe education. Like personally, from it's always right. It's learning the language, and educating about like the bad things, like even like alcoholism or even diabetes, like learning about and educating. Sometimes it comes up, but then they become teaching moments. So I guess those are having language, again, as the foundation, but people learning the language and having Anishinaabe names, knowing who they are, having that platform or even springboard into more Western education so they can succeed in life. And sometimes it's not for everybody education, but as long as they're aware, get as much education they can, but then as long as they're happy of the decisions they made. Sometimes we're kind of hard on our own people, like in terms of education. Like it's important, but at the same time, it's not for everybody. But as long as they're happy in what the decisions that they've made and are still doing the best, because you could have the hardest workers, not even have a grade 12, but they work so hard in life that they've succeeded. Um, I know I was asked one time, like, they said you're a pretty smart person for going to university and completing your BA, BEd. And I was like, I don't really feel any different. And I always say, like, that's, you probably put me in a classroom, yeah, I might know what to do, but then you ask me to build a house, I'll be lost. Everybody has their own skills. And again, like celebrating those kind of things, I think that would be like the vision, like, because not things are not for everyone, but as long as we're accepting with the school, I'm hoping that all the kids learn as much as they can of the language and culture of the Anishinaabe, and then for the teachers, the ones coming, the little ones coming through the school, is that they're able to have conversations in the language. We'll have little conversations, but they're still like baby steps, right? So that would be my, I guess, vision of mine, especially and with the school. I wouldn't see anything wrong with, like, say, for the language courses. Like, I don't mind that. It would be kind of neat if we all, like, okay, we got to go to Kiizhik school for the afternoon for the language culture aspect, and then we have actually classes here from other schools. I kind of thought it would be such a neat idea, or some kind of plan that we're able to function that way. And some Anishinaabe people can either have a different religion, whether it be Mormon or Roman Catholic, and if that's the case, and then we'll have them rotate to the Roman Catholic school, some of our students. But that's just something I was thinking about this morning in the drive here. Like, why do we work as different like silos? And there's nothing wrong with, because in the end, it's about our students and what they're learning, what they're trying to accomplish. But in terms of how they would help, like, say, it's even just having meetings with other principals, other resources. I know I'm sure they have questions, like with them having Anishinaabe students in their schools as well. Like, I'm open to them asking us questions, what kind of resources that we have, and but I'll have questions as well, like regarding the curriculum, and they might actually have some better ideas or good ideas regarding what they're doing with their students with the language, because who's ever at their schools, they're I'm sure they're Anishinaabe too, so there's nothing wrong with bouncing ideas off each other. But like I said, we seem to be work as silos. There's always a way to work around it, and I think it's just like networking with the other teachers. And there's so many, like, even like I mentioned social media. There's nothing wrong with having a Kenora Facebook page of education where we're all bouncing off ideas, and not to make it. I'm not saying that happens, but my school is better than your school. Our program is better than and we do have that issue with like the parity of salaries, though, like with the teachers. So and I don't blame the teachers. Like, if they're going to get a little bit more, and I'm not saying that money is like a barrier, but it does play a part. So if just networking, I think is a big thing, and being open to share ideas. And, like, we all work, like Kenora, for example, we all work in the same town. And some kids or students move from one school to another. This is not for them, they're going to move, or they just move to a different part of place in town. So it's just more. So talking with the others, like, what did you guys work here? What didn't work here? What were the students' triggers? I think those kind of things that to be open with that. And like I said, we have so much technology that it's easy to touch base. It'll be a phone call or a chat on Facebook or whatever it might be. It's just, but for some reason, and I could be at fault with it too, like just reaching out. And I try to reach out, but I guess I could be doing it more.